And we keep coming across advisors that have no plan. And to say, well, I have a website and I do some LinkedIn is not a marketing plan.
Welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. Brought to you by Elite Consulting Partners, it's the only podcast offering unfiltered guidance and direct advice for all things concerning financial advisors, RIAs, and the practitioners in the wealth management business. Learn more and subscribe today at eliteconsultingpartners.com/podcast. And now, here's your host, Frank LaRosa.
Hey everybody, welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. I'm your host, Frank LaRosa, and once again, and as always, joined by my co-host, Stacey Frank. Stacey with an E, how you doing?
Happy to be back. Doing great.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening.
So we're going to jump right into it today. If you've listened to some of our podcasts, and you listened to our year-end podcast where we talked about some ideas and some opinions about what trends that we think are going to happen this year. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to bring it down to the advisor's point of view. And I really want to talk about the top 5 things you should be asking yourself as we head into 2025. Meaning, what are the top 5 things you should be focused on as we head into 2025?
And have awareness for. What should you be asking yourself?
Exactly. And so we're just going to run through the 5 of them, and then we'll talk a little bit more in detail. So number 1, what's your marketing plan? That's the first one. Number 2 is what's your growth plan? Because a marketing plan and a growth plan are 2 different things. Number 3 is how effective is your data and your system and essentially your operational efficiencies in your company. You need to be asking yourself those questions. Number 4, essentially, what does your client service system look like? Basically, do an audit of your client relationship system. So that means, we'll get into that in a second. Number 5 is what is your succession plan, and or what I like to say is a contingent succession plan, right? And we'll get into what the difference between a succession plan and a contingent succession plan is. So number 1, what is your marketing plan? The reason why I think that that's really important is because as we see this trend of more and more W-2 advisors going to the independent worlds, independent/RIA. For this podcast, when we talk about independence, we mean all advisors that are independent, right? So
regardless of what firm you're at.
Regardless of what firm.
You could be at an RIA. You could be at a bank-driven firm, but you're independent. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. The reason why this is important is because marketing and branding and your online presence and the things that you do to put your message out and put your image out of who you are, who your business, what your business stands for, the types of clients that you work with, all of that stuff is going to become more and more important because it's what's going to separate you from everybody else. And the more people that go independent, the more of this you're going to see online. So the field is going to start to get more and more crowded. And we keep coming across advisors that have no plan. And to say, well, I have a website and I do some LinkedIn is not a marketing plan.
Right. How are you being noticed in the community? How are you being noticed by other
quote
advisors?
Unquote, air quotes.
By potential clients.
Right.
Advisors that don't have a presence, we believe, we know, grow a lot slower than those that do.
Right. And it doesn't necessarily mean you need to be doing TikToks with, with pink tutus and all that stuff, or I don't even know TikTok, I guess. But it means within your community, so your community could be an alumni community. So what are you doing to put your message out about who you are and what your brand is to that alumni community? You have to be doing those things. And what I think people don't understand about marketing itself is, branding, there's branding and there's marketing, right? So the growth plan, when we talk about marketing and branding, we're going to specifically talk about the sales marketing side of it. But branding is all about having someone understand who you are and what your practice is all about by the time that they meet with you for the first time, right? Because when you come across somebody at the grocery store, or you come across somebody at an event or a golf outing or just a dinner party or whatever, and they're a prospect of yours, and you sort of open the door to a conversation about working with them, one of the first things they're going to do when they go home or when they get a chance is they're going to go look you up online. Like, that's what they're going to do. And they're going to make a judgment about you immediately based on what's online. So it's your social media pages, it's your LinkedIn page, it's your website, it's what your website says. Maybe if you're lucky, they'll go through a couple different pages of your website. If there's news articles, if you've written white papers, that certainly helps. All of those things help you for when you ultimately sit down with them for the first time to talk about doing business together, right? Some of the online stuff and the branding legitimizes who you are and gives you credibility before they've even engaged with you. And I think that's the biggest thing that advisors don't understand about marketing. And what branding and marketing is really about isn't necessarily about lead gen. It's about that validation of who you are as an individual so that it helps you close business quicker.
Right, because clients, if I was a prospective client, I would want to know, are you someone that is like-minded like myself? Do we have similar interests? People want to work with people they know, like, and trust, right? That's a fact. So your brand or your community presence or your website presence has to portray that in some way. Because you're not going to attract clients that feel completely disconnected from who you are as an individual or as a business owner.
Yeah, and if someone
That's
says,
big.
"Well, my clients are older, they're not online or whatever," I call bullshit to that. If they are looking to, if the client, your target client, typically you want $1 million or more type client, right? Those people they're going to bring you several $100,000, maybe multiple millions of dollars. They're going to check you out. That's just what happens. And the first place they're going to do is they're going to go to Google and they're going to search your name and they're going to search your business, and then they're just going to start looking at stuff. And so your message has to be consistent across everything. That includes your Instagram account. That includes your Facebook account. That includes your LinkedIn account or your Twitter account if you have a Twitter account. All of that messaging has to be focused around your target brand. So that's why that's the number one thing. You basically have to set the stage for who you are and who you're looking for in 2025. So the second one sort of ties to that one, because one is the branding component of it, right? And that is I'll say it's sort of the messaging. The growth component of it is how you actually go and proactively go out and go after business. And so that ties somewhat to the marketing because you have to have the right message, right? But what is your growth plan? So, and I look at an advisor's growth plan really in three areas. One is the sales and marketing side of it. Two is do you have M&A or recruiting anywhere in part of your business plan? And number three is your organic growth, right?
Referrals,
referrals,
centers of influence, all that stuff.
Right. And so you have to break down that part of your growth plan into those three areas. And when we look at marketing, sales marketing, some of that has to do with once you engage with that person, once you sit down with them, then what happens, right? What kind of brochures and what kind of packaging are you offering to your clients? What is your sales process? Meaning, a prospect calls and they want to set an appointment with you. Now what?
Right. What can they expect next?
Right. What can they expect next? What's your system? Is your system automated? We've been talking to a lot of advisors recently, because we have a marketing company, but a lot of them, and the one common theme that I'm seeing where they struggle is they meet with people, prospects, right? And then they don't have a system in place to automate how they touch those prospects over a period of time.
Yeah, because the client will leave the office, and if you don't have an agreed upon follow-up step, then we call it the dead zone.
Yeah, dead zone.
The client sort of just goes off into the wilderness, and then who's doing what and why and how.
Yeah, or a client says to you, or not a client, but a prospect says to you, "Listen, I'm definitely interested in talking with you, but I have some stuff going on. Why don't we touch base in a few months, right?" And so the problem is you have no process which is the dead zone. You have no process to touch them during that 3-month period of time.
Well, to add value
So
in
you
some
basically
way.
wait 3 months, then you call the person back after 3 months and be like, hey, remember me? Right? And they may not remember you. So we're helping advisors build systems that automate some touch points throughout that period of time, so that you don't forget about them. Like every sales organization, what ends up happening is you start working with the prospect that has an immediate need to open an account with you, right? They're ready to go. They have an immediate issue. They have some pain point they're trying to solve today. And you're working on that and you're fully engrossed in that and you're forgetting about everybody else. If you're watching us from YouTube, lots of hand gestures today. You forget about everybody else behind you because you're focused on what's right in front of you.
Right, the squeaky wheel.
The squeaky
and
wheel.
That's very dangerous because there's a lot of opportunity maybe in your peripheral vision that you're not, they're not calling you, they're not proactively reaching back to you, thanking you. There's a lot of opportunity in those people that maybe you forgot about for the last 4 weeks.
So do you have a sales and marketing engine and process in place to do that? The second component to that is on the M&A side. Now, some advisors want to grow, some advisors don't want to grow, but there's a huge opportunity for acquisitions, big and small. So when we talk about M&A, we're not necessarily referring to the multi-billion-dollar trades that we see online. It could be a $10 million business or a $30 million business, AUM business that the advisor is just looking to retire, and that $30 million practice is maybe doing $200,000 in revenue, but it's probably a $400,000 book of business because that advisor is sort of at the end of their business. And what we've seen with advisors that are at the end of their careers, they don't work those clients the way they should. They don't work referrals, and they're leaving a ton of money on the table. So those are great businesses to be buying because, one, you don't have to pay a huge multiple for them, and there's huge upside to those firms. So is that something that you have worked into your growth plan?
And it probably could also be adding partner advisors, right? Adding junior advisors where you're taking an override. I mean, that's still in that growth concept.
Yeah, right. So it's not necessarily M&A. It's really just sort of advisor recruiting. So we can consider that category really M&A and recruiting.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of practice that we see where you might want to build an enterprise and you want to bring in the other advisors, offer them a turnkey service, and you're going to pick up an override on them, and you're going to be helping them, and they're helping you because you're getting an override, and you're helping them because you're giving them a platform and maybe better technology,
better
staff,
resources, support.
Right, exactly, things that they can't really afford, and so your 60% payout that you're giving them is better than what they would have gotten if they took down their own space, had to pay their own assistant, all that good stuff. So that's another opportunity. What I'm saying is you have to decide whether or not that's something that you want to do or not do. You may not want the headache, right? So these are some of the things we can have conversations with people about that we do all the time, which is why we're going through them. And the third one is, what is your inorganic growth plan? And that sort of ties to the first one, which was the sales process, but it's really it's geared toward your existing clients. Do you have a WOW program? Meaning a WOW, right? WOW, W-O-W. What are you doing for your clients to wow them, so that when they get something in the mail, whether it's not birthday cards, that's sort of old hack, but maybe it's anniversaries. Your clients that have 40-year anniversaries,
college
or
graduation,
college graduations. Are you doing things for them, little things, acknowledgments that just be like, wow, that's almost like the Jerry Maguire thing, right? Like, wow, my advisor doesn't do that for me, right? Because they're going to talk about that stuff. You sending someone may have a momentous occasion, and your client's going on vacation because it's their 50th anniversary, right? And the whole family's going to be there. Right, you find out what hotel they're going to, and you do something special for them on one of the nights that maybe takes care of the dinner for the whole family or something like that. That's a wow that you can do for your clients. Unexpected. It's got to be unexpected. But those are the things, because you want to generate referrals. And what I've learned over the many years is most advisors are poor. they don't know how to ask for referrals very well, right? They get referrals, but they're not good at asking for referrals. So you have to build a system and a process that almost makes it impossible for your clients not to refer you business. So what is your process? What is your organic growth plan? Do you have a scheduled number of times you meet with your clients on an annual basis? Is it we worked with one advisor that has the entire year planned out. At the beginning of every year, he sends a client basically their schedule. Like
their quarterly and annual meetings are already preset.
They're already preset.
Yeah.
So they already know when they're meeting with him. It was very well organized. So you just need to be thinking about those things. Anyway, moving on. Number 3, how efficient is your system and your data, and do you know your data the way you should? As a business owner, one of the things that I find interesting when I ask, I'll just say independent advisors, not necessarily W-2 advisors, but I'm also still shocked when I ask W-2 advisors, and they don't know data points of their own practice. Right?
Like the capabilities of their technology. I like to say, do you know how your data can dance? I don't think advisors do.
Right.
They don't know how it can truly dance to
right.
make it.
And you have to but in order for you to know how it can operate and be more efficient, you have to know what kind of data you're looking for. And so, as a business owner, one of your jobs is to understand your business cold, meaning KPIs, key performance indicators, and what are their relevances to you running your practice. And you can't do that if you don't have a system that operates efficiently that's going to push out that data to you. So what is your system? What technology are you using? And are you using it efficiently? Do you know how to use it? Do you have somebody else that can help you use it? Can you make it dance? What things can you automate within your system?
Automations. That's the other word.
Right.
That's a big one.
Right. So, talking about the wow effect, right? Client onboarding. When a client says, I'm interested in, or prospect really says, I'm interested in opening an account with you, what happens? Is it emails to everybody in your team? Is it individual calendars? Are there automations that you can push a button and tasks flow to everybody on your team for different things? Those things create efficiencies in your business. Just in terms of understanding billing, if you're running your own practice, making sure you're billing the clients so you're not losing time and losing money by billing incorrectly. Making sure that we talk about this in the growth plan, but what is your process? Is it an automated process and system technology that allows you to drip on your warm leads? All of those things are really important. Reporting. This one advisor we mentioned has his whole schedule of client meetings, set out for the entire year, and then he has a system in place that pulls the reports in for each of those meetings. So he's not recreating the wheel every single time he wants to go have a meeting.
Right, and how are the clients being reminded before the meeting, and then how are they being gratified after the meeting as thanks for coming in again, I appreciate your business. And prior to that, just a reminder that, it's, Wednesday at 2:00.
Right.
What are those automations?
Right. So you need to, this one really is about starting to obsess about the efficiencies and inefficiencies in your practice. You need to obsess about them. Constantly be thinking about how can I, in our world, it's how can we affect this process by operating it with one less click, right? Can we do the same thing with one less click, right? And then one more less click. And so that's how you need to be thinking about your business. Number 4, which is really, have you done a client audit lately? This, again, they all know, if you notice, they all sort of tie in together. But have you done a client audit lately? A client audit simply means really taking because you went through this with one of your clients, so maybe I'll have you talk about it, really taking a look at your relationships with your clients, the segmentation of your clients, and are you doing the things that you should be doing for those clients, right? You had an advisor that was going to move and ended up not
Yeah, I think we touched on this on a previous episode, but it has certainly created a lot of awareness. And I'm always asking the question of advisors, what is the strength of the relationship you have with your clients? And sometimes the answer is, oh, well, I've been with those clients for 30 years. And what we found is that doesn't really matter. But how are you affecting them? How are you reaching to them and making them feel like they're an important client of yours all along the way? Even if you're not having meetings with them on a regular basis, what are you doing to make them feel connected to you? Because otherwise, they could just go somewhere else.
Right. Yeah, and I think
It's a big deal.
You know, these markets that we've been in, and I've been in a bunch of them. So, you know, up markets like we've had, you know, since whenever, 2012, really. I think some advisors I've seen get soft. You put your advisors in advisory business, or you put them in mutual funds, and you're collecting trails on those accounts, which was the case in this with this advisor, and you tend to neglect your clients sometimes. You neglect the smaller clients because they're in, you know, you're getting your 12B1 fees and you're collecting your money, which is fine. But, you know, some of those accounts over time, they add up. And you forget, because the year goes by quickly, you forget that you haven't spoken to that client in 2 years. So you should be doing at the beginning of the year, you could do it at the end of the year, but really at the beginning of the year, and maybe you can split it up with your team, right? Go through every single client and ask yourself, are you doing the right thing for that client? Not the investment side. Okay, this has nothing to do with the investment side. This is, if somebody asked that client, how is their relationship with you, what would they say?
And if the answer is, I haven't spoken to my advisor in 3 years.
Yeah, that's a problem.
2 years, sometimes 10. I mean, that's
a problem.
Just not good business.
Haven't heard from them. Haven't talked to them. Haven't heard from them. I don't know. I haven't heard from them, right? And newsletters don't necessarily count, depending on what kind of newsletter you're putting out, which we can get into another topic, another show. But you need to be thinking about those things, and that's where the WOW programs come into effect. That's where your automated meetings come into effect, right? By automating those things, you can ensure that every year when you do a client audit, that your audit numbers, right? If you rated your business from a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of client experience, you want to get that number to a 10 as best you can. And the more you can automate some of those things, the better the number is going to be. So,
and going back to number 3, with regards to efficiency, is your data. You can leverage your data to help build automations to touch your clients in ways that they feel what we're just describing.
Right. And you can use there's all sorts of ways to do it. But the point is, if you're not asking yourself these questions, like if you're just getting into the new year and you're like, hey, great, I had an awesome year, I'm going to celebrate, and I'm just going to keep doing the same thing I was doing last year, that's a mistake. And so we need to work on that. Then the 5th one, and this one is really, do you have a succession plan set up for your practice? And you may not necessarily be looking to sell your business today, but you still have to have some level of succession plan, or what I call a contingent plan, in place, right? Because we've seen this happen where an advisor has nothing in place, and something happens to them, and the value of your business is decimated, because now all of a sudden the firm that you're with has to find a buyer for your clients, who are all scurrying now to find their own financial advisors, and your spouse is not going to get the kind of money that he or she would have gotten had you had a plan in place from the beginning.
Yeah, we've come across situations where the assistant wasn't licensed, the spouse wasn't licensed, but working within the practice, and it's just a legal mess.
Right. So
when we talk to advisors and ask them, maybe when they're in their 50s or early 60s, what's your succession plan? We're not trying to sell you a bill of goods. We're trying to help you at least have a plan, a continuity plan, I like to call it, in place to help prevent some of the detriments that we've seen.
Yeah, and it happens. It's every year we see it, and the firm is basically in a tough position because there was no transition to the new advisor, so there's a high likelihood of attrition in the practice, Therefore, they can't pay your spouse what they would normally pay them. So you have to have something in place. What a contingent successor means is that you might have somebody that you're buddies with, that they're not part of your practice. They have nothing to do with your business, right? They're hopefully at the same firm, which makes things easier. But a contingent successor simply means if I pass away, this person gets my business. I'm not selling my business to them. They're not part of our practice today, but it's just basically just having an insurance policy in place that person knows that they're the plan. There's nothing wrong with that. It costs you nothing to do that. Meaning there's there's cost of creating a document, but it costs you nothing. You're not giving up anything to have a close friend of yours who's in the business be a contingent successor for you.
Right, and hopefully they have similar.
Well, yeah, you want to make sure they have a contingent plan in place.
Similar processes,
right.
Similar styles in servicing clients, similar personalities, because that could go awry as well.
Right.
So it's important to do the due diligence. I think that's the point, way ahead of time.
Yeah, and then the other thing too is you want to start if you are older and you've been in the business for a while. What we're seeing also today is starting to work on the G2 or G3s, right? The younger advisor, bringing them in, getting them acclimated to your practice. And it's not that they can necessarily take over, but they could be a component of that succession and create some continuity between your practice and the new contingent successor who maybe isn't part of your practice.
Right, and I think a big thing for that G2, G3 population is coaching and mentorship. I've worked with some advisors in their 60s, and their son or daughter is in their 30s, and they're running a $200 million practice. If something happens to you, the advisor, and that younger generation is not ready to go, that's a problem as well. Right. So you can't start that mentorship soon enough.
Right. So, look, we're not here to touch on and go deep into each one of these topics. We're actually going to come out with a series, and we're going to go into further conversation about these things. But I just felt like heading into 2025, these are areas that we see are sort of hot topics right now, and I think that you need to be focusing on them. And you need to spend, take a Saturday and just be in the office by yourself or wherever you go to be quiet, right? And just write these things down and just jot some notes about whether you're doing a good job with them or not. Another idea would be if you have a team, go poll your team on from a scale of 1 to 10, how good do you think you're doing in each of those categories, right? So your marketing plan, your growth plan, your data and systems, a scale of 1 to 10, how efficient is it? Your client audit, how well do you guys think you're doing with your clients? And do you think that you have the appropriate succession plan or contingent plan in place in a case of an emergency? So do those things, and then figure out. You don't have to solve all those problems all at one time, right? But you have to have a plan for the plans.
Right, like build some kind of a cadence to say, okay, in the first part of 2025, we're going to focus on what the marketing plan looks like. Who are we going to utilize?
Right.
Obviously, utilize us.
Right.
What is the succession plan? Maybe that's second. Identifying which firm that is or who the person would be if God forbid something happened to you, so that your clients are taken care of.
Right.
If I was your client, I would want to know who that is as well, especially if you were on the...
Well, here's the thing. They're thinking about it. They're just not asking you. That's right. One of the things you might not realize. I know this for a fact, that they're thinking about, especially if you're older, what is the plan if something happened to you? And they might not be asking you, and it'd be great if you can be proactive and let them know when you're talking about them and them coming on as a client potentially that you have this plan in place. Anyway, so listen, we're happy to help you. You need to be doing this anyway, with or without us. If you want our help and you want to walk through some of these things with us, we're happy to help you in these areas. We're here to help advisors even if you're not looking to move. Our goal again is really just to empower advisors to make the right decisions with their business. So thanks for listening. And if you're interested in having a conversation, you can obviously call Stacey. Stacey, what's your number?
Yep, 856-816-6322 or Stacey at eliteconsultingpartners.com. Don't forget the E. or to reach Frank.
You can call me at 856-316-4651. Shoot me an email at frank@eliteconsultingpartners.com. And as always, don't forget to check me out on our Instagram account, which is franklarosa.elite. And you can DM me there. And I'm happy to help you with any one of these categories. So thanks a lot and have a great 2025.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. If you're looking for more advice or solutions on any topics in the financial services industry, or you just want to subscribe to our podcast, head on over to eliteconsultingpartners.com/podcasts.